JX, good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. I've been bugging you for 3 years already to come on the show. Um, for our dear viewers, SJX or Jiaxian SU, which he prefers JX or SJX, is one of my favorite watch journalists out there. For sure, the best one in Asia. And together with our mutual friend Waiko, they rule Asia for me. But why I put JX on a pedestal, he is all about authenticity, quality, very technical, very minimalistic. You actually have a very Western European style of meticulousness, Swiss, German, Dutch way of writing. I love the design of your website. So, for a lot of people that don't know SJX, SJX is not a watch manufacturer. It has an amazing online watch publication, amazing editorial content, photography, very in depth. You guys don't drive yourself crazy and your readers with the pulse of breaking news. You guys do everything thoroughly. You're very modest, so I'm very humbled that you did take up my offer on coming on
My
the show.
pleasure.
So thank you so much. Um, you started writing already in '97, and I
Uh,
believe,
I got interested in watches in '97.
and then you started as a freelance journalist.
I started writing when I was in a school in the equivalent of, I guess, high school.
Yeah,
Like for pocket money, I started writing watch articles for. Back then, it was still the print media, so
yeah,
magazines, papers in Singapore.
yeah. And SJX watches now exist, if I'm not wrong, 11 years.
Yes, correct.
Correct. So amazing. So you, although you have a Chinese Mandarin background, you are born and raised in Singapore, where you are today, right now.
Yeah.
Correct. Amazing. Okay, so we start the show always by doing a very important thing, a wrist check. I'm
Yes.
very curious what you're wearing today.
Black Bay ceramic.
Oh, amazing, amazing, amazing. So I racked my brain what I should wear, but I chose to opt for our first collab with Nomos, which is the background of our show today, because that's actually where our journey started. That you helped us out with promoting the watch, which we were very grateful for, and I believe that design also spoke to you personally. So
And
that underlines the
and I
fact.
thought it was a very subtle and clever design that was not just another limited edition in a different color. So you guys did a really good job with the subtle details of that design.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. So that's basically 6 years ago is when we really connected. Although I knew you from the Fora and SJX watches, obviously, um, but I've always been a fan and I always love what you guys do. And you are a bit a myth, a legend. So a lot of watch collectors hit me up when we announced that you're on the show because they were very eager to learn about you, and especially since we're doing more personal questions. So I want to dive in to these 7 standard aceless questions, of which the first is what watch or jewel is your favorite and why?
Uh, it's a really difficult question, but I would say probably an FP Jaune
Mm-hmm.
because it is um, product. It's a watch that I like in terms of the design, the complication, the history. It comes from a brand that I respect, by a watchmaker who I think is very talented, um, and who is who is, well, it's obviously a hot brand today, but that wasn't always the case.
Mhm.
But even when it wasn't a hot brand, he was still a very talented watchmaker making very good products. Yeah.
It's funny that you chose FP Joyner, because my grill watch is actually the Cerrato wheel.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's
I sorry.
Well, I was just going to say specifically my favorite model would be the Tourbillon Souverain as well. Yeah.
It's the resonance also very much speaks to me.
Yeah.
But the first time I held one in my hands, I think it was 19, 18 years ago, I was blown away, because the late Gino Sukovic, who had a deep hand in the brand. So Antwerp is close to Amsterdam. That's where I discovered it. And it's where we used to go day trips to Antwerp, and then obviously we go shopping for watches. And that's how I discovered Vianney Halter and FP Joyner. So it's everything thanks to our colleague Ginotti in Antwerp. So it's funny that you mentioned that. So amazing. Second question: what did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I guess I wanted to do something related to watches, because watches were already an interest of mine when I was young. So I sort of knew that would be something that I would want to do.
And did you have this passion instilled upon you through family, or how did you get affected?
It was actually when my mother wanted to buy me a watch when I was 12 years old. She had gave me a budget to buy a watch that was not a disposable watch, because at that age, up to that point in time, practically all the watches I owned were sort of disposable watches. They were not really proper watches. So now the budget was a bit more, and I had to buy a watch that it wouldn't spoil and I have to get rid of it. Something that could be repaired and something that could last. So that set me on down the path of doing some research to see what I could buy with money, and that's how I got interested in watches.
Interesting.
The watch that I bought at the time was a Tag Heuer.
Funny.
Yeah, this was probably
amazing. What model did you opt for?
2000 series.
Amazing.
Automatic 2000 series. Yeah.
Which again shows that you have good taste, because little people know that it's a Gerald Genta design.
Yeah. It's this was in 1997.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that's what fueled your passion to writing as well. Then
that's where it started.
Amazing. Very cool. Who is your role model? Who are your role models or past role models for you? Who inspire you?
I there's no specific role model, but at least in terms of what I do as a profession, I like entrepreneurs who build businesses that are sustainable for the long term, which have recurring success over years, decades. People like this are my role models. And you find people like this across every industry. But what I appreciate is that entrepreneurs with a long-term vision, who go slow and steady and basically build something that lasts. Because I think that's the way to succeed, and that's probably especially relevant today, because in the last, I would say, 3-4 years, there has been a lot of very rapid success in many industries and many sectors. But I always try to remind myself that it's the long term that matters, and usually things take time, but eventually you get there.
Interesting. Could that also be the reason why you are maybe the only publication that doesn't get driven mad by the pulse of social media, and that everything needs to be done at the speed of light, and that you take your time and do everything qualitative?
Yes, that's a reason, because I also believe that my readers, or at least the readers that are the most engaged, are those who don't really need the news immediately, but want to know a little bit more, want to know what lies behind it, because that informs the purchasing decision, which typically is the key reason behind reading about the watch.
Yeah. Interesting. So if I had to twist your arm and ask you for names, because you mentioned industries and people, so who would you mention that pops into your mind?
One that popped into mind is because of a book I just finished, which I think is your next question. It is about the guy who founded Renaissance Capital, the hedge fund in the US. And that's
in where? Where?
Based in America, Renaissance Technologies. His name is Jim Simons. So he's a successful hedge fund manager.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that for him, it was a late career. I think he was in his 40s or 50s when he started this. And it's a lot of trial and error to get it right. In the early days, when you read the book, it says a lot of things didn't go right. So it took years, decades. And then it worked, and now it's probably one of I think this is not. I'm not
Is
sure.
that the correct one?
Renaissance Technologies, not Renaissance.
Technologies. Sorry. Okay.
And now it's probably one of the most successful hedge funds in the world.
Okay.
They build computer models that predict the market, and then and make very tiny returns on the smallest movements of all sorts of asset classes.
Interesting. Okay, so we indeed jumped the question because we jumped from 3 to 5. So, but it's very interesting because you obviously have a very wide interest. Besides watches, you are also one of maybe the first watch publications that also wrote about business news in the industry. So, do you have a financial background?
In a sense, yes, in that I studied it in university. I studied business and economics, and I did internships in a family office where I was an analyst, sort of, I guess, crunching the numbers for in the investments. But I haven't worked professionally in the financial industry.
Yeah. So here are some examples of articles on your website. So that's also interesting because I assume a lot of watch buyers are active also in the financial markets and economical side of things.
Interested in business just by virtue of their background or their profession. So it's not the product that interests them, but also the business itself.
Yeah, interesting.
It's a small but fascinating business, the watch industry.
Yeah, it is. So although you and I think, are very meticulous and precise, but in this world, you need to be agile. So I'm just jumping from one question to the other. So back to the third one. Who in the watch industry is then an inspiration for you? Or what leader, maybe not so much a role model for you?
So say, for example, as a watch collector, I think, he's famous. Everybody knows him. John Goldberger, who I'm sure you have social media. I think as a collector, he's one of my role models, even though he collects, I would say, stuff that's largely different from me. But his approach to collecting is very analytical, very scholarly. He truly understands the topic. He understands the product. He understands the people. He understands the market. This sort of all-encompassing approach to collecting is one that I respect, and I think is worthy of emulating.
Yeah, interesting. And if I had to do a quick guess, I think your common passions is Cartier.
Cartier, yes, that's what.
Especially tank Americans is my guess.
Yes, I mean he has an incredible collection of vintage Cartier and a lot of other watches.
Yeah, cool. I hope John is watching or will watch it. We salute you. You're a great inspiration to us younger collectors.
Indeed.
If you could teleport tomorrow, JX, where would you go? And it can be time travel as well.
Well, if it's time travel, I would probably want to go back to the, I guess, the late 80s,
Yeah.
just to see how the how it's not really modern, but how the watch industry today took shape.
Uh-huh.
Because the roots of today's watch business don't lie in 1785 or whatever it is, but
Yeah.
actually more or less the late 80s in
Yeah.
Switzerland.
Yeah.
Uh, so that would be interesting to see how
Yeah.
everything came together and gave birth to the industry as it is today. The people, the places, and what happened. Yeah, that would be
Amazing.
really interesting.
What may I ask? What vintage you are? What year are you?
85.
You're 85, so I'm 79, so I'm a bit older. And because I had the luck to work in this industry, so really 83, 4, 5 were very monumental.
Yes.
I was just old enough to start grasping because in 83 we became a swatch dealer. So my dad gave me a swatch, but I was 4 years old.
Okay.
G-Shock. So I got confronted with analog time, digital time.
Mm.
He was already retailing IWC Porsche design
Wow.
from the
Okay.
70s to 80s. So I was mesmerized by titanium. That's why I love titanium. The compass watch, the
Mm.
Porsche design integrated chronograph pushers,
I have.
the Da Vinci in 85. That was mind blowing. Portugueser chronograph came out, the 3714. Breitling chronomat.
Yes.
So in these times, but there was no community like now. There was the
No.
momentum. It was Quartz that was dominating. Japanese brands were dominating. So the
It
Swiss
was,
were underdogs.
yeah. It was more of a niche industry, but it would
Yeah,
have been interesting to see not just the industry, but also how a lot of the collectors were developing at the time. Because at the time, most of the important, uh, the biggest collectors still mainly collected pocket watches.
yeah.
Wristwatch collectors were sort of the young guys, new guys. So it would have also been interesting to see how that was developing, why
Interesting.
they were buying wristwatches then, why they were buying early independent watchmakers then, like Frank Muller, Vincent Calabrese. All that
Yeah,
would have been interesting to
yeah,
see first.
yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned pocket watches because you write in your bio on the website that you're fascinated by JP Morgan's watch.
Yes.
Why is that?
Why? Because I think pocket watches are impressive objects.
Yeah,
And very often there are also, well, because pocket watches were also around for longer than wristwatches. Wristwatches
yeah,
more than 100 years old. Pocket
yeah,
watches have a history that go back another 400-500 years. So there are many pocket watches with interesting histories. And also as objects, they are arguably more impressive than watches because they are bigger and you can
yeah,
put more stuff in them. Um, but they are not something I collect because they, like I said, they are more objects than they are portable timepieces. But as objects, I think they are fascinating. I mean, one of the most interesting, impressive pocket watches I've seen is the Kremsdorff. It's this
yeah.
turquoise enamel pocket watch
Mhm.
that I think is one of the oldest portable timekeepers ever made, and it's almost in the what you would call new old stock condition. It sold I think 2-3 years ago for like $3 million. I went to the
Yeah,
Patek Museum, and that's an incredible object just because it's almost 400 years old and it's new old stock. It's
yeah.
practically in mint condition. So that's incredible. You wonder how it survived 400 years and suffered no damage at
It's
all. It's
amazing, huh?
entirely enamel.
Amazing. So I'm grabbing something on my desk. You see, I
Wow.
I collect a lot of stopwatches. I don't know why. I don't do anything with them. But yeah, I feel you, and it's a time capsule, and it's real art. And I also have pocket watch, which I don't do anything with it. But the fun thing is, I was goofing around with my kids this weekend, and I forgot that the iPhone, the stopwatch, has an analog function.
Yeah. Yes.
So I started teaching him instead of the digital stopwatch, the analog one. So I said, "Do you want one?" He says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So it's funny that if we don't pay attention to it, the fascination is there, but we need to cultivate it. So So that's cool. So I'm gonna give him one from my private collection. But you don't collect pocket watches.
No, I don't. I have maybe one or two, but I don't collect pocket watches.
No. Yeah, it's a pity that I guess only with a white tie outfit you would wear them, but otherwise,
Nice objects, so maybe I will in the future. But I think now I prefer to focus on wristwatches.
me too, me too. Same here, same here. Amazing. Oh, sorry. One question. I know where I would go if I would join you on your teleportation travel to the mid 80s. Where would you go though?
Where would I go? I would probably want to go to one of those watch fairs they used to have in Italy for independent watchmakers.
Amazing.
I heard, because this is really before my time, but in places like Milan and I think Turin and so on, like wealthy industrial cities in Italy, they would have watch fairs where there was Frank Muller and Vincent Calabrese and Sven Anderson and all the other independent watchmakers will be showing their watches. I think that will be interesting to see what it was like then for that particular niche of the industry, how they were doing, who was buying their watches, why these people were buying such watches.
Yeah. Oh, we have a special guest.
Okay.
Oh,
Say hi.
hello. I heard you
Say
were
hi,
very busy.
say hi, say hi.
Hello, hello.
The best journalist in the world, watch journalist,
Ah,
SJX.
Good.
This is Judith,
Hello.
country manager, Swatch Group Netherlands, but she's a girl boss, so she runs half of Northern Europe of Swatch Group.
Yes, I just
So-
came to see why you are too busy to come and say
She was
hello.
she was insulted I didn't go up to say hello, so I said.
But now I understand. Huh? Good.
JX is.
He's huge. I know. I know your
You're
name.
huge,
I
you
know
see?
you're by
See?
reputation.
Thank
Have a
you.
good, talk.
You've seen a bit. Sorry, JX.
No
So
worries.
funny that she walks in, because I wanted to say I would love to see 82, 83 when late Hayek was doing consultancy, deciding to buy up all the watch manufacturers, create SMH, that today is Swatch Group. I would have wanted to be there. So that's interesting. So yeah, sorry about that. Book we've done. On topic of book though, I'll ask a bonus question. Do you publish SJX in print? Only digital.
I've only done one print before, which was a
One
book
time.
with Tudor. Tudor, I visited the factory and I took some pictures and I wrote about it. And it was a limited edition print book.
Amazing. Yeah. Is there more print in the pipeline for?
Probably not, because it just takes too many resources to put out print. Maybe I'll do it, but it won't be anytime soon.
Interesting. So we've seen many years now color explosions. What do you think is going to be the color of 23?
I think it will be shades of green. It won't exactly be the green we see today, but I think watchmakers are going to develop the shades of green they have to offer, light green, dark green, turquoise, sea green. I think we're going to see a lot of that.
Interesting. Do you like the green?
Well, it depends on the context.
Mm.
I think some watches look great in green, but
Mhm.
as always, you can have too much of a good thing, so there can be too much green. Now there are a lot of watches in green, and not only some of them I think look really good in green.
Interesting. Last question. Have you ever been to Amsterdam before?
Unfortunately, not.
Okay. So now you need to promise me your next Europe trip.
I will definitely.
Let's go a bit more north.
Yeah.
Since you're an islander, you're used to jetting everywhere. Next Switzerland trip, you're training, driving, flying times in 1 hour.
I will.
We need to do a get together meetup here.
Will.
Okay, but interesting. You haven't been. So, what is your vision, or what do you think when you hear Amsterdam for somebody who hasn't visited?
I think I visualize a European city with canals and low-rise buildings, very tasteful architecture.
Mm.
people on bicycles, tulips, flowers.
Yeah.
That's what I visualize.
And on a watchmaking front,
Yes, also the watchmakers there.
what pops to your mind?
Gronenfeld, Christian van der Klauw, and of course yourself.
Thank you. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but it's interesting though, that the Dutch on the indie scene, Van der Klauw has been around quite some time. It's not. Did you? I assume you heard the breaking news
Yes,
2 weeks ago, which
yeah.
I was very happy about.
But I mean, this is also what we were discussing earlier, just before we went live. That you have one physical store well, you have a physical store in Europe, but you have a global presence because of what you do online.
Yeah,
I think is unusual, because usually retailers which have a big presence online usually are big retailers with stores.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was referring to Pim Koeslag going to Van der Klauw.
Yes,
but I guess that's the Dutch. They're seafaring countries going out. So we have always an outward look. So yeah, those were the 7 questions. Thank you so much. Although we've been all over the place, we kept it under 30 minutes. I have a zillion questions for you. Some regular viewers sent in questions that couldn't join real time and live. So we'll deal with that. At the end, we will definitely answer the questions of our viewers. What I am very eager to know, why is Singapore so obsessed with watches? I mean, historically, obviously it's Hong Kong, Japan as well. Although Japan is a big watch market, I think it's more of a volume market. Although Grand Seiko is amazing with Credor, Citizen does amazing stuff. Historically, they did love the independence. I mean, I think the biggest market for FP Journe is Japan. I think he opened his first monobrand boutique there as well.
Yeah.
But Japanese are not showing off, so not a lot reaches the surface, if you catch my drift. We have a lot of Singaporean customers. Singapore airline crew all obviously come here. But can you maybe enlighten us?
Well, I think it is a combination of factors. One, Singapore is as a country is quite wealthy. High GDP, which means there is spending power. 2 is that the native language in Singapore is English. Easy for Singaporeans to access international information. In Japan, as you mentioned, for instance, it is English is less widely used, and Singapore everything is in English, the road sign and everything. So that makes international access easier. 3 is that Singapore historically is a port city, so a lot of goods come in and out. So it's actually a hub, a watch hub in a sense for the rest of the region, for Southeast Asia. And 4 is, I think, historically also, 4 is related to 3, because Singapore is a hub. All the goods come here. Many wealthy people in the region shop here, which creates a cycle that even more goods come here. So you have more supply, and it goes in hand with more demand, and then it creates a culture of sorts where there are people who buy watches.
I think there's a 4th dimension, personally, is Singaporeans like quality and perfection. I unfortunately have never been to Singapore yet, although it's on my list. Travel is very high. I haven't, but I grew up with Singapore in mind with 2 things. Because of the Israel-Singapore connection, very early on, there were a close friendship between the nations, young nations. So I grew up and I met Singaporeans very early on in my life. So I hung out with a lot. fun-loving, but your country is very clean and architecture is beautiful and everything's done the right way. Very Northwestern European, actually, or Japanese in that sense. Every sense of perfection. And I think that Singaporeans, you guys like art, you like good engineering, and I think that's a dimension that it's not about showing off, and it's not about using watches as a bragging right, or correct?
Yeah, I think part of it is the appreciation of good quality objects.
Yeah. And I think that goes the same for the Japanese culture, and then Hong Kong, obviously, I think also was English colony and English, but why did that blow up as the watch hub of Asia? Was it before Singapore? I guess so, right?
Yes, Hong Kong historically has been a big watch hub. Firstly, it started as a manufacturing hub.
Yeah.
Hong Kong used to do enormous manufacturing of low-end watches before it moved to China. So one, it had a manufacturing base for the watch industry. Two is that it is more recently sort of a gateway to China. A lot of Chinese buyers shopped in Hong Kong, which naturally made the market bigger.
Yeah.
Is that I think Hong Kong developed at the earlier stage than Singapore. So Singapore historically was some years behind Hong Kong in development. So Hong Kong got to a high level of consumption earlier than Singapore. And also Hong Kong is a duty-free port, which means for many goods, whether it's watches or jewelry or diamonds, Hong Kong is attractive because it's duty-free.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting, yeah. And you know why I also formulated my opinion about Singapore in this sense is because of our mutual friend Mike Tay and their family run super retailer, the Hourglass, which is my role model as a retailer. Also, it's all about the education and pushing the métier d'art, as the French and Swiss say, about the craftsmanship and art making. And I think that's also very rare in Asia or in the world even. And they pushed very much so on the independence, because I think that's also your forte. Huh? That's a niche that you really like. You're not a snooty collector and you're not a snooty writer, because you write a big variety. But I think your personal interests lie there, don't they?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I like independent watchmaking. I think it is unique. It is special. It is. But I would say my taste in watches is very wide.
Yeah.
Like on my desk now, I have a Zin.
Yeah.
Easy M1. So it's I like watches of different genres. I think a watch has to make sense.
Okay. Interesting.
In terms of
Very
concept,
subjective, huh? Very subjective.
in terms of concept execution, it has to come together in a coherent package and it has to make sense. And when that happens, then I think it's a good watch.
Let's do a deep dive on that. It's a very interesting philosophical discussion. So, what does or doesn't make sense for you then in watches? Let's talk about some.
I get okay. I think it would have to be so to illustrate with a Tudor, this Tudor black ceramic I'm wearing. I think this is a fantastic product.
Yeah.
Because number one, it is affordable for most people. It is, I guess, 3,000-4,000 euros over there. So it's affordable watch, very high quality. You get a lot of features. So that, in a sense, it makes sense as an affordable product. But more than that, I appreciate the reasoning behind it, which you can see over there. I wrote an editorial about this. And this, for me, is actually what struck me most about this watch. What I presume is the long-term vision of the brand and how they are developing Tudor and how they are positioning it to compete with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So that the rationale behind the watch, behind its development, its positioning, its price, its features, combined with the product itself, I think the entire thing makes sense and becomes very appealing.
I shut up on purpose because I also own the watch. I love it. I love black watches, but I utterly despise DLC and PVD. So black can be today for me only a few things: forged carbon, if you like the marbled look, or ceramic. Obviously, I love the ceramic one because it's blacked out, but it was a unique piece. So for the only watch auction, and for me, this is a historic piece because it's the first MITA certified Tudor, which we all know from Omega. I've seen it in Bill, Bien, whatever language you want to use, how they test it and what these calibers can withstand. So yeah, I am with you. So 100%. But I'm not objective because we're Tudor retailers. So
it's a good choice. You have a good brand.
Very much a fan of. I'm also fan of the brand that is the shield protecting the crown. But I think it's more of the dual watch discreet matte finish. I like more matte than shiny. So if you look at the codes, what did you think? I'm just going all over the place. What did you think of the Black Bay Pro, which was one of the most talked pieces at Watches and Wonders?
I like it
in Geneva.
I mean, I like it a lot. The GMT they had before, I think, was a little bit too big. It's not a very big watch, but it feels bigger than it is. It feels thicker than it is. The Black Bay Pro, I think, is the perfect size. It's still a little bit thick. It's not exactly a thin watch, but it's okay. It's acceptable. And I think in terms of value for money, I don't think there is any other brand in Switzerland that offers the same kind of value that Tudor does, by quite a large margin.
Well said. And I guess the biggest discussion here is, should or shouldn't have they used the DNA from the older sister or brother? And I'm referring to obviously the Explorer 1, Feccione. What is your opinion on that?
My opinion, okay, this is purely my personal opinion.
Yeah. This is a personal conversation.
Personal
no
opinion.
No disclaimers needed.
But based on what little I know of Tudor and the people there, having spoken to them, I am probably certain that the design similarity is intentional.
Yeah, and it is, and it's fair enough.
And it is strategic and it is careful because they are reviving a design. Well, they were inspired by a design that is recognizable as being a Rolex, but only to watch enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Majority of people today have no idea what the original Rolex Explorer is because it's like 40 years ago that it was new. So for majority of people, it just looks like another sports watch.
Jakes, that the majority of consumers that walk into our boutiques or digitally or physically, even 60% that don't read the blogs do not know these brands belong to each other.
Yeah, because I think that
I think is a good thing, but I think that if there's one brand in the world that can legitimately rip off, it is Tudor. Because when I get critical feedback from consumers, I said, let's do some history lessons together. Let's grab vintage Tudor watches, check out the case back, check out the crown.
Yes.
The crown of the watch has a crown logo.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing marketing case study what Wilfsdorf did.
You could also see a sense of humor in that they are paying tribute or being inspired by something, and they're sort of doing it with a wink, and it's kind of funny that it looks like.
And what I tell people, that's why you need to see watches in your hands. Hold them. Because it's not orange. It's a yellowish orange. But okay, I was blown away. What I love the watch. I love the design. Obviously, I like the heritage of it. What blew me away is the indexes,
Yes.
the indices of the watch. They're completely made out of one luminous hybrid material. And these are little things that they keep on pushing the envelope on technology, which I love.
Yeah, it's what they do with technology is very impressive for what they charge. Again, it is my personal opinion, but based on what the watches are, what they offer in terms of movement features, and what the retail price is, I would say that Tudor as a brand probably has a smaller margin than most brands. So in that sense, the consumer is getting better value. Because another brand producing the same product of the same quality with the same movement, it will cost more.
I totally agree. I totally agree. So some questions are pouring in slowly. We'll jump to them. Wouter Teger saying hi on LinkedIn, or actually using a perfect emoji hand sign. But I have like a zillion questions for you, so I'll boil it down to one or two, and then we'll jump into our dear viewers' questions. Do you do this full time?
I do this full time. Yes.
And you guys are already, if I counted correctly, a team of 12 besides you.
Yes.
Editorial, full time, and contributors.
Yeah, and a full-time photographer.
Amazing. And what else was high on my list that I wanted to ask you? So full time. I'll just throw in one last one. Where do you think the industry is going to? We can conclude that it's overheated. Where do you see the market evolving the next 2-3 years? I don't even want to ask 5 or 10. And if you can, please do. So that's my throw out question.
The watch industry is usually lags behind the wider economy. So now you have, well, it's quite obvious that financial markets are in a minor crisis now. Stock markets, crypto, whatever it is. If this continues, it will, I'm sure, affect the watch business in one way or another. But as I said, the watch industry is lagging. So usually what you see is demand goes up, the supply of watches goes up. But once demand starts to dip, the supply of watches will still continue to go up for a while. So that there may be slower times in store for the watch industry.
Do you think it's a good thing? Is it a good thing?
Oh, for sure, it's a good thing, because I don't think. Well, at Watches and Wonders, I was speaking with Gisbert Brunner, who I'm sure you know who he is. He's been covering watches since before the quartz crisis. So it's been long time, decades. And he was saying to me that he has never seen a boom quite like this before, where demand for watches is so incredible and so off the charts that everyone and everything is doing well. He has never seen anything like this. The closest he can think of is what happened in the 90s, the late 90s, with all these crazy complications and independent brands and so on. So yes, I think it's a good thing, because then the industry will adjust itself to become more sustainable. And also that's where you see the brands that have solid fundamentals, the brands that are doing things right, the brands that have been doing things right. These are the brands that will survive and continue to prosper. Because if you look at the watch industry, not even for that long, for say the last 20, 25 years when I've been into watches, we have seen ups and downs before. And very often, as the saying goes, it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And you will see often very similar things happening. Yeah.
One last bonus question, quick one. How do you view I call it the commoditization of watches?
As in buying and selling watches.
That at a certain point it becomes commodity and not so much anymore about being an object of use or a tool watch or stored in safes or literally for
It just reflects the time we are in, the times we are in now, because demand for watch is off the charts. The values have gone so much, and it is, there are other objects that have become commodities before, and after that, when times are not so good, they're no longer commodities. Tulips were a commodity once, Beanie Babies. I mean, the list goes on.
Interesting that you refer to the Tulp Mania. So I see you love history, huh, JX?
So yeah, so I think it just reflects the time we are in now. It is good in the sense that it brings more people into the hobby. The attention, it creates, draws people in, but it feels like it has gone too far, and I think it will slowly lose steam as the rest of the economy loses steam.
I agree with you. So this is a difficult one. I've never had such a long comment. It even goes over our faces. So here goes. Our mutual friend and industry guru, Ernie Romers, the founder of whatyouseek.com, writes on Facebook, "Thank you for being on Alon's show. Interesting discussions. Apologies for this long message, but my question would be, and I've been asking this myself for a long time now. Being the former owner of a watch forum site, I was familiar with the, in brackets, competition from other forums, which made me think about how to be different to stay as attractive as possible for visitors and brands. I know there are a lot of watch blogs located in different parts of the world. What I noticed though is, and it's so long that I can't keep on reading it. So Ernie, if you're still online and watching, we lost your part, but otherwise I'll log into Facebook to see it there. I guess you don't know the question either, right? It's cut off too early, huh?
How to stay attractive to readers.
Yeah, I think how would I guess Ernie is asking you, how do you with SJX.com differentiate yourself and how do you stay different? I guess that's his question.
I mean, for me, the starting point is not to be everything to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my audience is smaller than most of the other watch websites, but my goal is not to be the biggest, to have the biggest audience, but rather my goal is to cater to the people who have similar interests as me in watch collecting. And yeah, so for me, that is enough. And I think that
so if quickly I have to ask you mission, vision, strategy, what is that for SJX watches?
It would be to provide interesting content for a very specific group of watch enthusiasts who more or less have the same interest as me.
For people that tune in later, we discussed this, but if we tune in later, what would that be? What interests you if you summarize that, Jakes?
I think that is impossible to summarize, but it is
Go, the floor is yours.
Watches that are interesting across every price point, with emphasis on independent watchmaking. But again, I think it covers every price point, every genre. I find high-end Seiko quartz watches interesting. I find Zinn interesting, Nomos, but also FP Jones, Lange, Creevia.
You're like me, all over the place. So Ernie's still live and he updated. So he continues. So he continues. What I noticed though is that when a new watch is released, all these watch sites write about it, and I tend to only read one or two because it's the same news in the end. And that makes me ask you, and this is the final question, how do you stand out from the other blogs? Do you consider the other blogs as competitors or mainly as friends in that way?
Well, firstly, the news about new products, more or less, it's sort of filler. It's not really substantive because it's just talking about new products. To stand out, what we try to do is to approach certain topics that I think our readers are interested in greater depth.
Mhm.
Like for instance, what did we? Okay, recently we covered the MBNF chronograph, covered in substantial depth. And yeah, and I'm not sure if anyone else did it to that level of detail as well. And I know that was interesting for my readers because I got feedback from people that they like the article, they appreciate the points I made. Some people agree, some people didn't. So I think that's what I try to do. Even sometimes we cover watches that I know my readers will be interested in, but nobody will ever be able to buy except maybe one or two people. Like say Philippe Dufault Grand Sonnery pocket watch, sold last year at Philip's auction. There are only 4 in the world, so that's not an audience at all. But I know that many of my readers were deeply interested in this watch, which is why I covered it in depth and with pictures that show the watch in such a way that probably nobody will ever else will never get to see unless you own the watch. So that is how I think I can, how we can stay different than just appeal to our audience.
Yeah, which if the viewers now didn't see the beginning of the stream or the interview, is what I love about SJX is that you guys go very in-depth and technical. And now on topic, indeed, where I go to SJX is if I see a picture don't grasp what the movement does, I go to you guys. So you guys literally go you know what you're talking about. You know how to explain the technicality. You love it, so you radiate the passion. And I think you always add a personal tone or opinion to the piece, right? You're not scared to offend brands because you do. Yeah. You're truly independent.
I think as long as as the cliche goes, criticism is constructive and is grounded in facts and reality, then that's how that is also what the audience is looking for.
Because if I'm not mistaken, you don't sell anything on your website, do you?
Not
the book you published.
Yeah. I mean,
correct?
we had limited editions.
Yeah.
But these are occasional. We don't have a permanent store.
No, but these are the collabs.
Yeah.
Because the first one I think was a Habering too, right?
Kudoki, and most recent was
Kudoki. And
Urwerk.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. Correct. That was amazing. So Ernie says, thank you for answering. Appreciate it. I see we have a little bit more time. A question that was sent in earlier, we actually we didn't deal with this. Somebody asks, what's your favorite brand?
Well, my favorite brand is a brand. So leaving the products aside, I would say it's Rolex in how they run their business and how they build their business and how they sustain their business. There is no other brand in the world that does business in such a measured, long-term, and modest way. It was surprising to use the word modest to describe Rolex, but it feels to me like they are modest. Like they
are modest. They are modest.
The Academy Awards, the Academy Museum, the Museum for Film and Motion Pictures in the US, and I think they were one of the top donors. But they seem to be the only donor whose name is not on the list of donors, which is how the brand operates. And I think that is very admirable that a brand that is obviously the biggest and most successful in its industry can operate in that manner and can have the long-term vision to operate in a way that ensures the brand is paramount, the quality of products is paramount, and everything else is not so important.
I agree with you, and I think it appeals to you because it rhymes with your philosophy of long-term, qualitative, sustainable, and not on the pulse of trends, I guess.
Yes.
So we have Rocky here, and I keep on saying it. He's the founder of the Watch 4 crew in the Netherlands. He has joined us live every single episode. I think episode number 43 or something in total, cumulative over 3 seasons. He writes great talk on YouTube and continues to ask, what is your favorite watch complication? Good question, Rocky.
I would say it is the chronograph.
Mm.
Well, for reasons that are obvious, in that the chronograph, usually there's a lot to see, but also for the reason is that the chronograph, I think, is the complication that you can get something interesting at every point of the price spectrum.
Mm.
So like I just now I mentioned the Zin EZM1 chronograph. I think that's a very interesting chronograph for very affordable price. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the Lange datograph, which is also very interesting, and it's, I don't know, 100 times more expensive. So I think the chronograph is interesting for what it is and also what you can get for every budget and for everyone.
Interesting. You're referring to this one, right?
This one, and also the older version, which I also have, the original EZM1.
Amazing. I do see that you like Germanic style and watches, don't you?
I do, yes, but again, not specifically.
No.
Watches have to be coherent. So like another watch I have on my table now is a Parmigiani.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Expanding hands.
Yeah.
So this obviously is not Germanic. It's kind of fancy.
It's the pantograph, no?
Pantograph.
Yeah.
A watch like this again.
From your passion from pocket watches, doesn't it?
Exactly. So for me, the execution is interesting. How they did the expanding hands is fascinating. It's very clever. But the historical inspiration of the vintage William Anthony pocket watches is also fascinating, because those watches are extremely rare, extremely expensive, and they're so desirable that both Patek Philippe Museum, Sandoz Foundation have one in their collection, which means these expanding hands are very special of these collections.
I've had the honor to visit and hold it in my hands. I'm a great fan of Parmigiani and Michel Parmigiani, and I think Guido Terrini is doing a terrific job. So Rocky concludes, love the Parmigiani Fleurier. He also is a fan, and we actually visited the manufacturer together, he and I and a crew. Cheryl Fleur Blanc writes on Facebook, wish I could be so lucky. I don't know what it really refers to, but we wish that you will become lucky in the ways you want. We have few more minutes, very quick one, last one. Somebody sent beforehand, what do you expect from the JC Biver brand? So that's Jean-Claude Biver, starting with his son, a new haute horlogerie brand. Quick one.
Well, I expect that he will create what he said he would, which is a classically inspired watch with several complications combined in one watch. Technically, it'll be very impressive. I'm sure it will be a very impressive product with attractive design. I've seen the drawings. I think it might take a little longer to come to market because the movement is like triple complications. So it might not be ready so quickly. But I look forward to seeing what he does. I'm sure.
Me too. So, and I found it amazing that he joined the advisory board for Norken. So he really, really keeps on pushing the Swiss watch industry as an ambassador. Thank you so much, JX. Next episode in exactly 2 weeks is with our mutual friend Davide Cerrato. He's coming back for the second time on the show, this time as the CEO of HYT Watches. I want to thank you very, very, very much. I hope it wasn't too much of a nuisance for you. And
I'm glad I finally got on your show. Thank you again for having me.
The honor is all mine, and great pleasure. Cheryl writes thanks. Ernie says thanks again. All the best. I hope to welcome you in Amsterdam very soon.
Likewise.
All the best, JX. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.